Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture, the show where we discuss science, technology, and culture in its myriad of forms. My name's Ben Warner, and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern to solve the conundrum of making money online. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, thanks, Ben. Hello, SciTech Culture fans.
So, I guess this is a little bit of a selfish topic for us because obviously we're content creators, and I guess the crux of the topic we're going to cover today is about how creative people that produce content via online mediums, how do they actually monetize the content that they produce? In other words, how do they make money? Or can they actually do that with the current forms that are available to them? Just to give you an overview, thanks to improvements in technology, creative people have the ability to produce professional quality content from their homes or when they're out and about with their mobile devices. These advancements have led to a new dilemma of how to monetize the content that creative people put directly onto the internet. Online advertisements, pop-ups, 30-second videos, donations, and crowdsourced funding all provide opportunities for creative people to make a living, but do they actually work? And that's what we're going to look at today. Just to start, I guess, from a personal point of view, Steve, we've had a look a bit at, say, online advertising. We haven't done any specifically for SciTech Culture. We're trying to, keep it ad-free because I know when I go looking on YouTube and whatnot, I actually, try to skip over the ads as much as possible. Sorry, YouTube. I know that you probably don't like to hear that, but the thing that I found, well, at least my experience with, if we start with actual pop-up ads and videos and whatnot that sort of run either over the top of your content or in front of your content, is that they can be very irritating to the audience member that's watching it. And I can recall several years ago I was running videos on a platform that had a lot of advertising, and although the feedback I got from quite a few people was, oh yeah, love the content, but absolutely hated having to navigate through all the TVCs or I thought you might appreciate that one coming from your TV background. So and then I thought, well, considering it's not really generating that much revenue, what would be the point of irritating the audience in that way? If it's you'd want to get the revenue in, but you also don't want to put people off.
Yeah, well, I think what it's come down to is a maturation of the video online. We've had a good 4 or 5 years of that now maturing. YouTube is a mature platform. We have people like video on demand and subscription on demand, like Netflix, coming into the arenas now, all competing. And I think as traditional media has morphed into the digital realm, where what we're seeing now is a lack of actual imagination. And they're trying to use the same advertising tricks that they used on free to air, and they're not appropriate. And interestingly, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen lots of interactive attempts, people clicking on ads as they go around or around images and things popping up, and that doesn't work. And it's very interesting what it means, because it means basically if Google ads don't work anymore, if the ads at the front of a video don't work anymore unless it's very high quality content, they're going to have to change a model. They're going to have to come up with a new way of doing it.
Just to give you an example, and we were just discussing this before we got on, and again, don't want to criticize one particular website, but the Age is something I have a look at every day, and they've now introduced this extra layer of advertisement that when you go to read an article, you scroll down halfway through, and then the article kind of parts like the Red Sea, and a big video ad pops up in the middle, and immediately I thought, oh damn, I have to shut that down, hit the X in the top right corner as soon as possible to sort of continue reading on. And we'll discuss, we were saying on iPhones and iPads you can hit the reader view, and I'm sure there's other reader views on other platforms too, and that kind of bypasses it. We'll get to the Apple stuff in a minute, but it's that sort of thing that you don't want that to get in the way of your content, but then at the same time, how do you how do you generate that revenue? I mean, as another option, you could ask people to donate money, but that's really not, historically, that hasn't had much of an impact. People just don't. I mean, so there'll be some people that will, but you're not going to generate the kind of revenue you need to sustain yourself.
Well, I think it comes back to platform maturation, and what happens now is we have, such few options for platforms. I mean, YouTube is an amazing video content system. There's no two ways about it. But I think everyone would agree, unfortunately, that it's the way it creates advertising still isn't quite matched to the medium. People want things for free. They want them quickly, and they don't want to be clicking down pop-ups. So something has to change. Who knows what that will be? And then the other side of this as well is that for the producer that uses YouTube, the deals now that they're matured, because YouTube, for instance, we'll keep on saying YouTube because let's face it, they are the premier video platform online, have the deals in their favour. For that matter, so does Apple through their subscription services. So it leaves, I think, basically content creators from that, they've been shifted down a notch. Originally, it was the democratization of content, and anyone could get up and be seen, and it was free. And now if it's any good, probably the platform will make money first, and then there's a surplus small content kickback to the creator. But it's not quite like it was, and I think those two need to be answered, and will be answered over the next year or two, because once somebody cracks it, it'll be a game changer.
So we'll bring up the issue that where Apple is introducing into their software, particularly iOS 9 in their Safari mobile browser, which is to actually put ad blocking software into the system. Now that's very significant. You can get third-party utilities to do that, but for a major tech player to introduce it into their system is going to, it could have major impacts on that overall model, because you can imagine that the default thing that people are going to want to do is to switch the thing on, because if you can flick a switch and every ad switches off, why are you not going to do that? And from Apple's point of view, they don't make money off of ads, so to them it's probably just another feature that improves the user experience. So I
was going to ask, Ben, is it an innocuous improvement to the user experience by Apple, or is it an aggressive push where they've been locked out of perhaps revenue share? You could pay perhaps Apple to enable ads to pop up. Yeah. I don't know if that's their plan, but it could be seen as an aggressive move. But their subscription model doesn't require ads, so it's a benefit for the user, and that can only push people towards the Apple ecosystem, along with the other features such as the lockdown operating system, which protects people as well.
So maybe just as a side thing before we get on to a final point I wanted to mention relating to this was the other issue, I guess, with ads, You'd almost want, as a content creator, to have at least some say as to what ads get run on your site. But if you're going to, say, run a bit of code, you sign up for a program, you run a bit of code on your site, and it just serves ads, and you don't know exactly what it's going to serve, there's a problem as well. So if we're running a science, technology, and culture website, so if we get say if we were to run ads on our site and we had, I don't know, some a Dell ad running in a banner on the top, that would probably make sense, in terms of being at least related to what we're doing. But if you get like a how should we say a Russian dating site pop up, where does that fit in?
Well, that doesn't fit in with the user experience, and I think that there has to be more attention to pay to that. I think also, though, Ben, I visited MySpace recently. Don't laugh, everybody. It was actually a good experience, but it's very, very different now. It's a music site basically around content sharing. It's a music and content sharing site. I don't know if MySpace will ever recover from what happened, But I saw some features within that site that if that was extended and people started to build communities like that, that could actually represent a significant challenge to YouTube. And it would certainly give the artists a lot more control over their work and advertising and also revenue share. So it's very interesting. If you can create a community online, or if you had the tools to create a community-based site online, like MySpace, and I'd welcome everyone to go and check it out and see what they think, there's every opportunity then for people to, perhaps change the current model.
So bringing it back to the implications of, say, what Apple's suggesting with their ad blocking software, that would seem to me to, let's say in the case of Apple users, push them towards purchasing the content, which would serve Apple's interest, obviously, because they've got a big store to buy things from. So is the next maybe logical step, if you take out things like Kickstarter and other crowdsourced funding type arrangements, which aren't really a guarantee of success either, do you just ask the audience to pay for what you're making? And that's how you raise the revenue, and that's really the only way to do it. Or you have your content in a subscription type service, whether you attach it to, say, something like Netflix or whatever else, or you put it up on the iTunes store or whatever, and you just get people to pay for it outright. Is that really the only way it can go?
Well, this is the big question. I think yes to all of that, but someone has to build these sites first where people can put their content up and, not just ask for funding for the project, but also allow people to access the project through the site. Access the community. What happens now, of course, as we know, is, you crowdsource, but it's all done through social media, trying to push people back to your crowdsource page.
Yeah.
And then all that happens. And then, the file doesn't end up there. It ends up somewhere else. And there's a content share deal there. And it's very, very messy. I imagine the guys at YouTube are probably across this sort of thing. And who knows? But I'm sure that there'd be other startups out there that would be looking at these sorts of things and these opportunities, because they're very powerful. Strong communities, strong online communities. And make no mistake, once again, Netflix is a commercial entity, but it's a community of people who watch Netflix. Netflix has, as we've spoken about anyway in the past, crowdsourced or used crowdsourcing to create content. So they could do it again. They could reinvent how to do it. And imagine if Netflix did that.
Yeah.
I mean, that would just be amazing. They've got a full community of people. They could connect the producers, the content creators, and the audience, take them on the entire journey.
Yeah.
And then deliver the content through their own channel. I mean, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe one final point is also maybe, I don't know if you'd call it an education process, but we've gotten into a state, the audience has got into a state where, although I'm sure there's a lot of people that'd be happy to pay for things, there's just too many people who feel like it should be free. There's a disconnect between realizing that producing content is just something that can't be done for free. We do pretty well in keeping our costs down, but at the same time, we could not only improve the show a lot more and do a hell of a lot more if we had a lot more funding behind us in that respect. So the fact that that's required, but then the audience doesn't want to, ultimately the audience has to pay for that in order to get that level of quality. There's probably something about that as well that probably needs to be factored in.
Look, you see that now with news sites, and there in Australia there are some notable news sites that are free, that tend to have opinions that are also expressed on social media, which is great, but free comes at a cost. There's no doubt about it. If people want that quality journalism to continue, then somewhere along the way they're going to have to pay, and these models are going to have to pay. So when people talk about doom and gloom, for publishing and whatever else, digital mediums or the print to digital medium move, I think it's just, all that means is there's just a platform waiting to happen. And once somebody works out how to make those platforms work, and they do, I mean, there are news platforms out there, particularly in the US, that have raised money and it's more static content, I guess, than video typically. They're not serving video, but they've made it work.
Yeah.
And I think, as I say, people who use or create creative content, we're just maybe a year or two away from somebody coming up with a platform.
Well, just to finish off, I know Netflix is a totally different kettle of fish to a newspaper site. But if you think about it, they've got 3 plans, sort of small, medium, and large, if you like to scale it down. If somehow a newspaper sites or news sites were able to create something that simple, and when people went in, it was a very clean interface. They could get to their content very easily. I can't see why that wouldn't work for them either. And I know that I would probably subscribe a lot more to news sites if I had the confidence of knowing that I would get that sort of clean experience, that clean, easy experience through all the content.
Well, I think that's a big one. I mean, not what you're going to get is the biggest killer of any subscription service. And if you pay a subscription and you go and you get disappointed,
you'll just cut it off.
And that's it. That service is finished. So that's where I think content aggregation is important. And that's where I think communities are very important. And if you really look at how things are going in terms of platform development now and the next generation of online, platforms, community is very important.
Yeah.
We have loose ideas of what community are online. Obviously Facebook and Twitter and a lot of the social media sites give great service to that now, but they're now 6-7 years old, maybe a bit older.
Yeah.
Technology is changing. I think we'll see new ways of sharing content across platforms and new ways of monetizing them that reward the content creators, because in a more targeted community, the higher quality the content, the more value it has. And once again, no one should look at Netflix because it's a big company with its own creative capacity. You should look at it any differently to a group of people that get together and produce great content that people want to consume. Yeah. It's about the fact they have content that people want. Any community can do that. And if they can do that and provide a social aspect and also a credit card facility, which you can't do on YouTube.
Yeah.
So we can't have anyone swipe their card and watch, 2 episodes or anything like that. In fact, doing that would guarantee no one would watch, which is one of the current problems. The other way to go is to have pop-over ads on there or whatever and get 0.01 cents per view. It's not going to work for us. So someone is right now working on a platform I'm absolutely certain that will change this.
Something we can look forward to. So we might wrap it up there. So thanks again, Steve, for the chat.
No worries.
Okay. Don't forget, we've run right out of time. But point straight to our website, SciTechCulture.com. We don't have any ads, so you don't have to navigate through any of that stuff, at least not yet. You can interact with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. I'd love to hear from you there. And if you think anyone's interested in our discussions that we have on a regular basis, just point them to that website and you'll be able to see everything, and we'd greatly appreciate it. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.